So what would we do?
Hi, happy Friday. This is week 3 of Ask Me Anything. And we are with Adrienne Garstang. She's the ultra iron woman. She's on her 3rd in October. Which one is it?
Ironman Louisville.
Louisville. Okay, nice. So she's going to talk Ironman to us. So to start, tell us how you got into doing Ironman.
Well, originally, my husband Brad and I started out doing marathons in 2001, and I ran quite a few and started to get a little burned out on just running all the time. So in 2008, I decided I would take up triathlon, and so I've been doing triathlon since then, and will still run during the off season. But I really like the variety that it offers in training and just for my body and general health.
Okay. And then since then you've done how many marathons?
Well, I think I've done about 15 marathons. This will be my 3rd Ironman. But I did start out doing sprints for a year and then moving into long distance for another year and then half Ironmans for several years and then moving into the Ironman distance. So I always say it's a little ironic that I chose triathlon to get away from so much running, but now now I'm at the Ironman distance, so you still have to run a marathon. But it's just a unique and different challenge in itself.
Yeah, it's for sure unique. Okay, so let's start with the myth buster. Some people think that they'll make excuses like, well, I don't have a really good bike, or, you know,
I don't know how to swim.
I don't know how to swim, so I could never do an Ironman.
Right.
True or false?
I think both of those are false. I was not a strong swimmer to start with, and so I joined an adult triathlon swimming group when we were in Liberty, and then now I swim with the Masters group in Gladstone. And you just have to work at it. You have to find some people to coach you and help you along the way. As far as the bike goes, you can absolutely ride a bike that you have. The only thing I've seen people do in races is they show up on race day with a bike that has a rusty chain and their tires are flat and their bike just hasn't been maintained, and so they're not going to have the best race experience. So my only advice is use what you have until you know if you love it and you want to keep doing it. Just make sure you take it into a local bike shop and get your bike maintained, get the chain oiled, get everything lubed up, get your tires checked, get everything aired up, know how to change a flat tire if you get one. And
but you don't necessarily have to have the top of the line.
No, you don't, and I wouldn't even recommend it. I mean, when I started, I did buy just kind of an entry-level aluminum frame, kind of multi-sport bike. It had aero bars on it, but it didn't have the gears on the bars, and so I could ride it for road rides, I could ride it for racing. Some people have borrowed bikes. You just have to make sure if you're borrowing someone's bike that it actually fits you, because the bikes are sized based on your height, and so if you have a bike that's too big or too small, you won't enjoy your ride very much.
Okay, nice. Touch on some of the most important aspects as far as training, like how much time you should expect to be putting into training, your eating habits.
Yeah.
A couple of the most important things.
Really, in the challenge is, going to triathlon is you're managing 3 sports versus 1 if you're just a runner or you're just a swimmer or just a cyclist. So putting those pieces together, trying to do each sport 2 times a week. Yeah, so
is that the goal? Each sport?
2 to 3 times a week, and so it depends on your workout. So for a sprint, it's minimal time investment during the week, but you do.
And for those who don't know, what is a sprint?
Okay, so a sprint is your swim distance is around 500 meters. The bike is around 10 to 12 miles, and the run is usually a 5K. Sometimes a little different depending on the course. So there's not a real set distance, but it's all very manageable. And then it goes up from there. So long course, you get to like 800 to 1,000 meters. Swim, more like a 25-mile bike, and then usually 10K run. And then you go into the half Ironman and the Ironman distance. And so that's where your training time, for a sprint, you can get away with probably 10 hours a week. At the most, probably not even that much. That would be maximum. And then if you move up into Ironman training, when you're it's your
like
longest,
you right now.
Yeah, so I have my race October 15th, so I'm in some big things. So I'm riding 100 miles tomorrow. That takes 6.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So you're hitting some 20-hour weeks.
And like you said earlier, it's a part-time job.
It does become a bit like a part-time job. You've got to be able to, it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
That would be the only downside to Ironman is the amount of time.
And what's like the most important thing you would say about your nutrition as you're going along with everything? Some
I think,
people aren't, or,
well, you definitely have to practice what you want to do practice and training what you want to do on race day. I mean, that's kind of a general rule of thumb, but it's so important, especially if you're a person who tends to have GI issues when you do endurance. I don't, so I'm kind of lucky that if my plan doesn't work out, plan B usually is fine. And just general nutrition, usually if you're working out this much, you want to be fueling your body well.
Eat a lot.
Right, because you'll feel better when you work out. If you're just eating, I don't have a super strict diet, just trying to eat real foods and not a lot of fried food. But I like treats too, so I'll reward myself after a 100-mile bike ride tomorrow.
Do you already know what you're going to be?
No, I'll figure that out. But last night after a hard swim, I had some guacamole and chips.
Awesome.
You definitely have to make sure you're replacing calories and replacing them in the right time frame and replacing them well. It's easy to want to just start getting really hungry and grabbing everything you can find and not being mindful of what you're putting into your body.
That's going to affect your
right, and that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, tell us what your personal mantra is and what motivates you the most.
Yeah, so I had to figure this out when I did my second Ironman in 2015. My coach really was like, you've got to know your why and you've got to have a mantra. And so I came up, my mantra is very simple. It's just, I can. And it's actually based on Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so I had to simplify it to I can, because at first I wanted to say I am strong or I am this, but then I'm like, but what if I'm not strong at that moment? Then you feel defeated because you're not meeting up to your mantra.
Yeah.
So I can allows me to take a moment and say, I can do this swim. I can swim with all of these people. I can make it to the next buoy. I can bike another 20 miles. I can walk to the next aid station. So it allows me the freedom to encourage myself
to get past the next little
right, depending on where I'm at, because especially when you race Ironman, you hit a lot of mental highs and lows throughout the day. I mean, you're out there for me, like 13 hours. So you've got to have something you can zero in on when you're kind of hitting those lows to kind of get you up out of that valley, and you do come out of it.
Nice.
But I think you need it for anything you're trying to conquer. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be Ironman.
Anything new.
Anything new and kind of scary but exciting all at the same time. And I would say triathlon is definitely all of that.
So what's your next goal? Do you have something? Is there anything bigger than an Ironman?
No, not for me. My next goal is to play more tennis and do more strength training in the off season. I think it's good to have variety because it's all great, but there also has to be some balance and finding the things that you enjoy. And sometimes the training can feel like work, and so it's good to take off season to just do something that you're not looking at times and splits and what's my workout every day coming up on your email, and to give yourself that mental and physical break. And so it's good to find those things as well. It's all good, but all the good things in moderation. Yeah, you got to take a break.
Take a break over Christmas for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
that was
welcome.
really informative and nice. Next week we'll be here with Marina Crowley talking Newbie Run Club, because our Newbie Run Club is starting on October 3rd. So tune in then. Have a good weekend.